Witchers, welcome back to the Witcher Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots. I'm here with Toasty, my good buddy. And Toasty, we are talking about the mid-season climax. Is that the best way to call it? This is episode 5 of season 3 of The Witcher. And they did some interesting film stuff on this one.
I think it might have been multiple climaxes from how they separated out the scenes, to be fair.
Yeah. We do start the scene with kind of a, happy bedtime moment for
and then
Geralt.
we have several more happy bedtime moments in different locations in the room.
Yeah. For Geralt and Yennefer. All right, so we're going to go through it. This is our reaction, some of a breakdown, some of the things that we liked, didn't like, some of the things that worked, that didn't work, some of the things that were in lore and then not in lore. We're going to all of that stuff like we normally do. Toasty, where do we start?
Well, we start at the beginning where we see what seems to be Yennefer and Geralt spending some time together after the night's events, which kind of cuts in the weird framing for this episode where we're going to have the intermittent scenes of them having essentially pillow talk about the night's events.
Pillow talk. That should be the name of this episode. Pillow talk.
Yeah, we'll name it Pillow Talk. Put it on for Spotify. That's
Yeah.
That's today's episode. While showing us little like moments, or I guess not little moments, but long moments of the party.
Right. And then they consecutively reveal more about some of those scenes than like they go through it like 3 different times and reveal kind of different people's perspectives on scenes and a little bit deeper into a conversation that may have been cut short so that this develops. And initially when we went into this, we were like, clearly from the beginning, you're like, okay, this is after a thing happens and we're going to see flashbacks to the thing. And then they started rolling it out like through the first time through. And I became immediately suspicious. I was like, okay, this is how this is unfolding. And then as it worked through the episode, I became more impressed with the way they actually laid it out, because I felt like it actually was done very well, even though at the beginning it felt kind of contrived.
Yeah. No, I was actually, I thought they did pretty well with how they did this, the layout of this episode. I thought it was neat and a cool little concept.
Yeah. All right. So where do we want to start with the details? What things do you want to point out first?
All right. Well, of course, Geralt and Yen enter the party for the first time, and we get a nice little Geralt Yennefer little moment of Geralt realizing that Geralt doesn't have a good track record at parties.
Right. And they're both wearing the weird outfits.
Look, we're not going to talk about the outfit. I hate the outfits. I still hate the outfits. I hated the outfits the entire episode.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed. I don't like them. I just tried to ignore them. But speaking of outfits, we get a nice little scene. And this is actually something that happened in the books, is that like there's a moment where Sabrina comes up and she's trying to basically, and of course they do it a little bit differently with here, where like she's just got her boobs really pushed up.
Yeah, she is wearing like the tightest top you could. I mean, she must have been like, it must have been hard to breathe.
Yeah,
the amount of like push up going on in that top.
Yeah, and it's slightly like see through or whatever. In the book, she's just wearing a straight up see through dress that you can like see everything. Like nothing's hidden beneath the dress. You can see all of it. And it's funny because like Geralt in this little scene kind of hashes out the same way, but he does in fact just like spin time just staring at her chest when she's doing it. And it was just a funny little scene from the book, and I like that they did it, where especially when Yen's like, don't look, and he's just like,
okay. Yeah, right. It's hard, and it's hard as a somebody who's attracted to women to not look, because an attractive woman is an attractive woman
to.
Right,
she was trying to seduce him. She gave him like a mental vision of like, giving him a taste, I think were the words said in it. So she's very much trying to seduce him, just to mess with Yennefer, though. Apparently everyone loves to mess with Yennefer.
Yeah. It definitely didn't seem like she was into him. It seemed more like she was messing with Yennefer by messing with him, kind of thing.
Yeah, I just thought it was a neat little like call to the book. And like I'm sure there's a lot of stuff here that's actually in line with the books, but like when it comes to knowing the specific political topics that people talked about at this party from the book series, it's hard to remember. I'm sure there's a good chunk of this stuff that was in this episode that was taken word for word, but I would not be able to tell you. I just remember that moment in particular.
Right. Then we get the minstrels walking around telling us that all is not as it seems.
Yeah, and this will be a theme for the episode with the layout. Every time we come back in, we're going to hear the I guess the opening. I didn't pay attention if it's the opening part of the song with the little like the drums or something, like those little or whatever leading into, and then they transfer over and it's the all is not as it seems, and they will do this like you will get this line of the song at the start of every like flashback moment
iteration. Every time they go back to the beginning, they play through the moments and add a little bit more.
It's a cool little for this scene when we're not yet sure exactly what's happening with the structure of the episode. It's a cool like hint, like, you know, like a subliminal kind of like message to the audience of like pay close attention to this one, because all is not as it seems.
And so that could have been cool. Really heavy-handed, but I feel like it was light enough that it was the kind of thing some people are going to miss, but if you notice it, and then you go, oh, okay.
I think everyone will notice it. I think maybe not at first. They won't notice it on the first round, but then they'll start to realize it because it does, like, the lines come in every single time.
Right.
And even some of them, like, later on that are a bit more vague and it's harder to hear them, but I still like check to see if, like, do I hear them every time? And you do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, but Yennefer goes over to I'm blurry.
It's all right. I think you're just off center enough that sometimes you go blurry. But so Yennefer goes and talks to Tissaia and Vilgefortz
about mending bridges, where Tissaia is saying Yennefer needs to mend bridges with Artosa. I wrote his name earlier. I can't remember.
Artorias?
Artorias. There you go. That's the name. Mm-hmm. Artorias is like one of the bigger known mages from the council, as well as another person, or Stregobor. And then, but like Yennefer kind of throws it back on her, saying like, "Hey, have you mended any bridges with Philippa yet?"
Right. Like we all have our things. Like, come on.
Yeah. And then it kind of cuts over to like the end of Geralt and Philippa's conversation, where Dijkstra walks up and
kind of interrupts the conversation, sort of.
Yeah. He tells Philippa, like, you're like taking all of the Witcher's time. You should and then says that he appreciates Geralt because that means that Dijkstra is not the only non-magic folk or commoner present.
Right. It's like he tries to identify with him in a like
he's trying to relate.
Hey, like, we're kind of the same, right?
And it's like one, like that's just awkward. Two, the commoner thing is kind of an insult, and Geralt takes it that way. Like he's like, I'm just a simple commoner. You have to speak simply. And also, he is magical. He's a Witcher. He can wield a little bit of magic, and he literally has
he's a mutant
magic in his veins.
Right.
He's not non-magical.
Yeah. In fact, and nobody else anywhere he goes even sees him as being like a commoner in any way. Like he's never included in any other group ever. Yeah. Yeah.
And we get after this, we kind of get the tail end of all these conversations. Like we get the very tail end of the conversation with Philippa, where Yen tells her, thank you for coming tonight. It means a lot. We see Yen moving on to talk with Istrid, but we don't hear anything that they're talking about. Meanwhile, Geralt's up on the balcony with Vilgefortz, and Vilgefortz is telling Geralt, oh, I heard that they used to be romantic together. I guess first love never does go away. Like antagonizing him a little bit.
Well, sowing seeds of doubt, I think, is kind of a way to phrase that. He's kind of saying You really sure about her? She kind of gets around. She's also been with him, like trying to put him on his back foot a little bit. Like,
yeah,
but why? At this point, we're like, well, why would you do that? What's the point?
That's like, this seems like just like kind of unnecessary, like asshole-ish behavior from like, okay. And he seems like, so far we've seen Vilgefortz, he seemed like a pretty like genuine guy, as far as like his relationship with this Hay and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
and as far as in the show goes, he stood with the mages at Sodden. He like we haven't really seen a lot of evidence that we need to be worried about him yet.
Yeah. So that we get that, and then move on to the melange, which is a dance between basically all of the significant figures except Tissaia and Vilgefortz. Apparently they get a free pass and don't have to participate in this, but everyone else is in it. And even
Geralt
scenes. Yeah, even Geralt. He doesn't want to be. Right. He has to.
Right.
Luckily, he seems to know all the steps. It's real fortunate.
Yeah, that's a little funny.
He's asking what the hell the melange is as they're going into it.
Right.
So, but I do really like scenes like this, like these like political maneuvering dances. Mm-hmm. Like this thing that you have to do, and it's like comes off as one way, but it's like the perfect way for you to like network with different people.
It's also symbolic of the political dance as a whole. The fact that everybody's maneuvering and doing it, and now they're doing it in real time in an actual dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get Yin talking to Artorias, and just trying to convince him. She's trying to mend those bridges, as Tissaia said she needed to, and get him on her side. We get I thought it was a weird jab from Kira, because obviously she's still a little upset that Yin like broke someone's neck in her shop and she had to like run away. But like Yin's trying to, make amends there, and like offers to like share a drink with her and they could chat. And Kira says she's trying to get pregnant tonight, which makes me wonder, because as a sorceress, she shouldn't be able to do that. Right. So is that just like a joke to like jab at Yennefer? Because Yennefer's like, her thing was that she wanted to, like she really wanted to be a mom.
Yeah.
Or like, did they, was the writing, like, did they forget that sorceresses can't? Like, I don't know what.
Or are they alluding to a different origin for Kira? Like she became a mage on her own outside of the Brotherhood and all of that. But yeah, I don't know.
It's hard to say. As far as I know, for like game Kira, like it's the same thing. Like she's a sorceress. She's infertile.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah, it was just thought it was a weird jab, but it was like pointed, and it was such a specific enough thing to say that it brought my attention.
I like this this next note because you this is a call to Ben of Temeria, one of our patrons and one of our friends. You right here. You can enjoy that small moment of Geralt and Triss.
Yeah, so I actually just listened to the Two Girls One Ship episode about Witcher 2 today. That Ben went on, because that's a Geralt and Triss game, like 1,000%. There's a couple other things, but it's pretty much Geralt and Triss, and you don't have a choice in the matter. And he's the Geralt and Triss stan. So I was like, there you go. You get to look there. There's this cute little thing, Triss is standing next to Geralt. Here you go.
That's about as much as we get, though. That's it. Yeah, right there.
But there you go, Ben. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing that.
Also, your next note. I'm just going to read out some of the notes as we go, because it's fun how you write these. We knew Henry Cavill and Anya Chalotra had chemistry, but damn. What does that mean specifically?
So like, there's like the part at the end of the dance, right? Like, where like they have their dancing together. Mm-hmm. And like the way, like how close they are together, and like the way that they're like dancing with each other. And like, as we know, this is going to be like, they're doing this for a certain way later on. But like, you can see, it, like there's sexual tension, and it's like, it looks good. Yeah. Like they look they look good together. And like, they're actually like, you can believe the relationship and how much they like, Geralt and Yennefer want each other.
Right. Oh man, that's so bitter. That's so bittersweet.
That looked really good.
It looked really good, but it's so bittersweet with Henry leaving the show.
Yeah, we're gonna see how that goes. I don't expect to see scenes like this with Liam. So
right, and then we get the fight. We get Istredd and Geralt duking it out. The first time this happened, were you suspicious about this? Because it felt contrived.
It definitely felt contrived, and I was unsure, like, what exactly the purpose was. I thought, So if this had happened and we'd seen the A Shard of Ice story in like season 1, then this I would have seen as like definitely a ploy for something. But I thought at the first time around to see it, I thought that they were trying to like basically shoe in the Geralt and Istredd stress, tension from the A Shard of Ice story, and trying to put it in here because we had yet to really see it.
Right, before. But instead, it reveals later that they were conspiring in order to get attention.
It did. There was also, I will say, there was a little bit of oddness because like Istredd so far hadn't been pursuing Yennefer anymore.
Right.
Like it felt like that had been over. So it was kind of like is Geralt, like, what is he doing here? But I know that I think I remember something from the books that he does have like a jealous moment at this like party for some other reason. I don't think it's Istredd in the books. I can't remember what it is though.
Right.
But I think there is a jealous moment in the books. So I thought that this was like, we do this, but we're going to do it with this person instead.
We're going to change it up. Yeah. Right. But Istredd, like as you note here, he holds his own. He holds his own, and we would totally expect that Geralt will just like tear him apart because he's freaking Geralt. And so that also leads a little bit of like, well, he's pulling his punches. He's letting him get some hits in. Like,
it does seem a little off, in which they immediately tell us that they're like Yennefer. We go to another bedroom scene, and Yennefer says like, "Oh, the fight was a clever plan."
Yes,
and it was like, okay, so this was part of the plan. And we move on to like the final speech of the night, where Sisea, Vilgefortz, and them are all saluting peace and trying to have a time of peace. And we have Yennefer to thank for this because she's the one that orchestrated this conclave of mages so that we could do this.
Right. But that is all very well edited and skips over a lot of other things that happened in the night, which we find out later. Find out
immediately after in another bedroom scene that all of it was a clever plan.
Right.
They were putting on a performance.
Right. All right. So that's the early part of the episode. We have to go thank our patrons, but we'll be back and we're going to cover the more fleshed out version of the events and get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty of what was going on. So don't go anywhere.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Mm-hmm. Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right, here we are in the middle of the show. This is where we get to thank our patrons. We don't have any new ones this week, so no new patrons to call out, but we still have our higher vampires, Ben of Temeria and Jared M. Thank you so much for your support. And to all of our other patrons, thank you for being here and supporting the show. If you're interested in getting ad-free episodes, helping us out, getting stickers and t-shirts, joining us on patron chats, any of that stuff, then please check out patreon.com/WitcherLorecast for all of that. Also, if you leave a review on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it out on a future episode of the show. We don't have any new ones to read out this week, but just a reminder that I will be out of town this week coming up, so I'm not going to be here to do the patron episode. But Toasty, are you going to get together with the patrons, you think, on your own and just kind of record something?
Because July 31st is
we're
the last
pushing
week
back
of this month.
Right.
Yeah, so we're good next week.
We're good.
And then we have the patron chat on July 31st.
That's right. I've got a lot of shows, so they all kind of get jumbled up in my brain.
It's the only show that works out for this month. All the other shows you have to figure out.
It is. So I'll be back before the 31st, so we'll be able to do the patron chat on the 31st. We're just going to miss out on an episode next week. So sorry about that, but we'll be back and we'll be able to talk with our patrons. So if you want to join us, you still have time to sign up on the Patreon and then join us in the Discord chat. You can kind of link up your accounts and then we can be in conversation about what you might want to talk about on the show itself. So thanks to everybody for your support. Let's move on with the rest of the show.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
So as we dive back into the events of this party, we get kind of a more full view of some of the moments that were happening. So this starts off with the full Philippa conversation.
Yeah, we get the full conversation with Philippa and Geralt, where Geralt lets her know that one, he like knew about her and like Jaskier and all of them working together, and Philippa reveals to him like, you know, that he really can't trust. I think she's trying to push the idea he can't trust these mages. Not even the food and drink are what they seem. You know, someone spiked the wine with an aphrodisiac earlier in the night. The caviar is an illusion. Everything is real done up and fake for like the presentation of things.
Right. So like the food is fake, but the people are fake too. Like everybody's putting on airs. Yeah.
Yeah. The real double meaning. And of course, as we get into the more political talks in this episode, that's what a lot of this is going to be. These kind of figures know how to speak and say things while implying or meaning other things.
Right.
And they're all quite good at it. They have to be because they run in these circles. She mentions that Codringer and Finn are dead, which Geralt apparently didn't know that Ryance had killed them. And so Geralt tries to pry information from Philippa about the mage, like see if she knows anything, to which she retorts that her lips remained carefully sealed. And then offers to give him an orgasm.
Right.
Just give him one, not to sleep with him.
Right.
She can just cause people to have orgasms. And I was like, okay, cool, I guess.
Cool. That also seems really like, I don't know, without the rest of all that what goes along with that, it seems like sudden. Maybe is that the right word? Like, oh God, okay, this just happened.
It would be very sudden, but like
yeah,
that's that she does. Philippa definitely like uses her like womanly charm as a means of getting things. I mean, like many of the female mages do. Yeah. Sure. Part 2 for the people that are just watching the show we're going to see just how much she uses her womanly charm to manipulate Dijkstra in their relationship. So that'll be fun.
Speaking of Dijkstra, we get his full conversation.
Yeah, he walks up. We get the whole conversation, and where it seemed like before he was threatening Geralt to like hand over Ciri or else, he's actually trying to say that Redania is the only safe place for Ciri as the continent gears up for war. You can't trust the mages. Redania is really your only choice.
Yeah. And with his big goof earlier, I mean, props to him for actually playing up kind of the rational perspective with Geralt. I mean, it's not going to work, but at least he's trying to appeal to his rational side, which, you know, hey, it's worth a shot, I guess, from his perspective.
Yeah. And Geralt, meanwhile, he's he's not really there to listen because this is still manipulation, and he knows that. Dijkstra is trying to get Ciri into his clutches for power, doesn't actually care about her safety. But he's still distracted because he sees Stregobor, I guess, kind of being he's being a douchebag to one of the help. But what else do we expect from our friend, the douchebag wizard?
The douchebag wizard.
That's what it is. That's what we named the episode.
Stregobor, the douchebag wizard.
So he leaves that conversation and just walks straight up to Stregobor. And basically they have a little bit of conversation where Stregobor is being his typical Stregobor self and has even the gall to say that he's being just like Geralt. He's weeding out the monsters from his home. And it was like, no, you just don't like elves and you're trying to get rid of all of the elves.
Right. You've defined like common people as monsters. And so now you're just terrible. Yes.
Yeah. But Stregobor is always dressing himself up to be the hero in every one of his stories.
Because in his mind, he has justification for believing that they are, in fact, monsters and that humankind would be better without them. So,
yeah. So you gotta keep holding on to that racism, Stregobor. It makes us like you even less every single time.
Yeah. Except for people who are racist. Do they actually like Stregobor? Like people are in our own world who are racist?
I feel like there's a good chunk of like racist individuals that are out here watching the show and don't like Stregobor because he's so against elves and don't realize
that they're doing the same thing themselves.
Looking into.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or the people that watch like The Boys and they think Homelander's like still a hero. It's like, but there are people out there like you.
I haven't even watched The Boys, but I've seen.
You immediately know
Homelander's not.
Homelander is the racist, psychopathic, power-hungry, most powerful superhero, right? But yet there are people on forums online who think he's the hero of the show.
Yeah.
And that's problematic. But anyway, so back to things. So we got Istredd and Yen. We got more on their conversation.
Where it looked like maybe this was a moment in the lover's nook as they whispered sweet nothings to each other. Actually, they're planning. Istredd is informing Yennefer about the missing Book of the Monoliths. You know, whatever, we'll just ignore that. And basically saying that Stregobor has it, and he's planning to use it to banish all of the elven girls that he has abducted into another sphere, just to get them off their sphere entirely.
Right. And from the evidence we've seen so far, this seems to track. This seems highly likely to be the thing that's actually happening here.
Yes. So we see that, and they're basically trying to figure out, they're like, we need to get someone into his office to find the proof. So they're trying to figure that out.
And then we get the moments of like Geralt watching him carefully and the Geralt and Yen plotting the distraction.
They're watching to find a moment that they can do something. And they plot at the end of those moments we mentioned before where like it seemed like the sexual tension was high and they were very close to each other. They're actually whispering to each other on how they were going to manage to make this work. And that they even had like a code word for like, you need to get the hell out of it, or in case Stregobor came looking or something. And we see that the fight with Istredd was the distraction.
Right. And it works. It works the first time.
Istredd agrees into it. They're whispering the whole time and like plotting the fight out as they do it. And then when Geralt backs off and asks for a truce, which is the code word, it means that like Yennefer needs to get out of it, which she doesn't, but whatever.
Right.
And we see that she has entered his quarters and finds a cabinet and a moth flies off. That is like Stregobor's alarm to go inform him like, hey, someone's snooping in your stuff. But while she's in there, she finds the list of names of all of the girls that have gone missing.
Right.
And like items that belong to them, a necklace that belonged to one of the girls, a mirror that belonged to another one.
Right. Which was hinted at earlier in the season with, who was it? Triss finding like evidence that things had been taken and girls were missing.
Yeah.
So this seems again to connect all of this back to Stregobor.
Yes, everything's connecting back to Stregobor, and he does show up. He gets into his room and confronts Yennefer. Geralt shows up like immediately after, so he can't actually do anything to Yennefer, luckily. And then other members show up. Tissaia, Vilgefortz, Istredd, and Triss all come in. And Artorias.
It's a big old wizard convention at this point.
And they're going after, and like, so this is the thing, right? And like, granted, let's just say it. We're happy Stregobor is going to be out of the picture, and that they like condemned him for this, because it's good. It's good that like he's terrible. He needs to be removed. So that's good. But we know at this point, if you watch the episode, he's not the one that's actually doing this stuff.
Right.
It's not actually him.
Right.
But also, this dude, like, I can't remember the name specifically of the argument. Maybe you can help me out. But there's like one of the like logical fallacies where you attack the arguer rather than
it's
trying to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because he's the whole time he is just going after Yennefer,
right,
and saying how like she's not credible,
but not actually defending the evidence of the situation. Right.
Yeah, like he's not defending himself. He's just attacking her, which makes you seem more guilty, because if you use one of these like fallacies in an argument, it makes you seem like you are not, like, you don't have anything to actually defend yourself.
Right. At least for people who are aware that that's a maneuver. Unfortunately, this actually works a lot in the real world. In fact, people in politics use it all the time. They don't actually talk about the issue. They just attack the other person who has the claim on what the actual evidence is or whatever. This also works in courtrooms, because if you can make people doubt the person that the information's coming from, then the information doesn't feel valuable anymore. But it doesn't matter if Hitler is standing in front of you underneath a blue sky and says the sky is blue. Just because he's Hitler doesn't mean that he's not actually saying the sky is blue and the sky is actually blue. Like if you look at those two things and they're still real regardless of the person who said it.
Yeah. But he's also like, at this point, it was just a poor choice on what to do things. Like, yeah, this could have worked in season 2 when Yennefer but she has since proven that she is the hero of the night. She has garnered the support of all of the members that walked into this room. This is not how you win this situation. If you really wanted to, you don't attack the person who's the hero.
Right. But of course, this doesn't work out for him. And he's just racist. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. He's attacking her because she's part elf, and like he's always hated he can't believe her because So it really doesn't, like, whatever. He sucks. So this next line says, "And just when we thought we were free of blood origin." What does that mean?
Yeah. So they find a secret compartment in the back of the cabinet, and they pull out what is the Book of Monoliths, and we see that the Book of Monoliths is that weird little freaking tablet thing from Blood Origin that's been like made into a book, and it's like, oh, okay, well, there you go, there's your reference. I mean, I guess I should be grateful that that's the only reference we had to the entirety.
It could have been a lot worse, Toasty. It could have been like all over the place. Yeah. So
Jaskier doesn't mention it the whole time, and he's supposedly got the story.
Yeah. So at least we're fortunate for that. So that's good. Okay, so what about Tissaya's bracelet? Because this keeps coming up. What do you think's going on with this?
Falls on, like, I guess it falls off of her as she's like leaving the room.
Right. Which is one of those convenient like story tropes. Like this is another one of those moments that people, whether it has anything to do with the original books or not, when this stuff happens in TV shows, it's like,
this bracelet has a lot of convenience to it, because 1, it falls off conveniently.
Yeah.
2, Yennefer finds it. 3, Yennefer and Geralt make the decision not to give it back to her immediately, even though they are going to rejoin her out in like the main hall.
Right.
Yennefer is going to be pulled forward by Tissaia to be congratulated in front of everyone and thanked in front of everyone, which would be a perfect moment to be like, hey, by the way, like, you dropped this earlier.
Yeah, here you go.
After that's been done. But they decide not to do that and hold on to it. So it is very convenient bracelet, but it is a piece of evidence that will lead them to the truth. And I'm sure I think that there's more to it as well. Like,
yes.
1, it's a clue, but I also think that like there's specifically something that's going to happen in the coup that like Vilgefortz was using it as like a protective thing for her, or like to keep her safe during a situation. Maybe, or like keeping her safe with it. Because I do believe that like with the story they've done here, that Vilgefortz does in fact love Tissaia. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he's just a great actor, but I do believe that, and I feel like maybe there's something protective on it that's supposed to protect her during this thing.
Yeah, and
because she doesn't have it, something bad is going to happen because of it.
I see. Okay, that makes sense.
But we'll see.
It's also a little suspicious to get something that's probably magical and to be a mage and not realize that it's a magical thing, or like.
But if you give it to your girlfriend and there's like what appears to be a protective charm or enchantment on the bracelet, like, do you question it or be like, okay, like they want to keep me, like it makes sense that
true.
you would want
That's
to keep
true.
me safe
If it's something like that, if it's more nefarious than that, then that becomes a problem. Like, what if the reason why it's no longer Aunt Seiya and now Yen has it, like if now he can listen in on her and hear something that he wasn't supposed to hear or something, right?
Maybe
that gives him an advantage.
See if it has anything. I may be like looking into it too much, and it may not have anything besides a convenient piece of evidence against him.
Something.
But I feel like there's something else there.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we're back to them in the room again.
Yeah. So they're out on the floor. Okay. She's just been thanked. They walk away, and Geralt says, "I love you" to Yennefer.
Yeah.
And they kiss in front of everyone, which I believe is something. I think I can't remember very actually specific, but I think that this is a thing from the books. I think so, because her allowing him to kiss her in front of everyone seems very familiar to me.
Like it was an important first time kind of thing. Yeah.
So, so they kiss, and you see like proud mom to say in the background, which is great. I love that. And she looks over, she's happy for Yennefer. I think that's great. And now we're back in the room.
Right. Okay.
I did put another note here. Do you want to read this one out? Because you like the way I write things.
Ope. Ope. Like the word ope. You never read the word ope. She's horny, must have had the wine.
Yeah, because it's the aphrodisiac in the wine, and she basically says like, "I want to get you alone," and it's like, that is, I'm sure, in part of him saying "I love you," but also, I think she did actually drink the wine, and we see her drink the wine, so it's quite possible she has had some of the aphrodisiac. Right,
and then your next comment here is Geralt in the bath. They did the thing.
Yeah, they put Geralt in the bath.
Yeah, Geralt in the bath. Everybody loves Geralt in the bath.
It wasn't quite like the season 1 fan servicey bath that we got in season 1. He looks just more like a wet dog, but it's fine. You know, they've been presumably having sex the entire night. So he can look like a wet dog. He's allowed. I'm sure he's tired. But they basically they're talking about Philippa, and we get the kind of the last little like flashback scene for the episode where Yennefer and Philippa, we get to see their full conversation. I noticed that Philippa calls her Yin, and she puts like a little bit of like a sarcastic tone onto it, and like Yin is very specifically Geralt's nickname for Yennefer. So it was obviously a dig. To like, I guess maybe the fact that she heard it and she thought it was funny or something, like just making fun of. Sure. But it was noticeable enough because like A Shard of Ice very specifically has a debate between, Geralt calls her Yin, Istrid calls her Yenna, like it's a thing. And Philippa is trying to convince Yennefer that she can't trust the mages here, and that like her and Tissaia fell out because she didn't want Tissaia to go to Sodden because she thought it was dangerous. And she does double down saying like, it was dangerous. The only reason we won is because you tapped into that fire magic. Yeah. And even then we technically still lost quite a bit that day because we lost the number of mages that died, the 14 mages that died, as well as you lost your magic and yourself for a long time. Right. Which is, I thought that was like a very cool way of like saying that specifically. Like we may have won the battle, but we still lost.
Right. It also kind of justifies Philippa's perspective a bit, even though we know she's kind of a terrible person, but it seems like maybe she had some good reasons for doing what she did, at least justified to herself. Yeah. And then a very specific quote that she said is that the Brotherhood has no place in the future continent. And we know that this is setting up the threads for the creation of the Lodge of Sorceresses. Yeah, this is foreshadowing. Yeah. So
That was cool. That was cool that they put that in there.
Yeah. Your next line, I don't think they had bras like that at this time, but whatever, I guess. I think you're talking about Yennefer.
Actual, like, legit bra. And I was like,
I think like that other blouse she had, I think what she's doing is she's teleporting through dimensions somehow, maybe using Ciri's power and then shopping at like TJ Maxx.
I hate it. I definitely hate it. Like, you see, these are the things, right? And, you know, I said I was going to ignore the outfits, but I guess I'm not. But the thing is, right, is that you have all of these like things that you can look at for like outfits that you can use.
Yeah.
Very specifically, in the situation of this bra, we have The Witcher 3, where we frequently see Yennefer wearing that particular
it's like a halter top kind of cover,
like corset brassiere type situation,
right. And historically you can look back at fashion throughout the ages and from different places and see what fashion existed and what didn't, and so it would make sense to have things that weren't invented within the last 100 years.
So like you have this is like, if you want to do a little like scene with Anya Chalotra in a bra, at least use something that actually makes sense rather than like a modern day bra.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but
so anyway, but whatever.
Moving on. So what happens next?
So we start to form the connections that Yennefer mentions Lydia and how, like, you know, poor her, she got something happened to her and she can only speak telepathically to people. And Geralt realizes, he remembers that Taryn said the woman with the strange voice.
Right.
And he realizes that maybe that's who Taryn had been talking about, which we know. I don't know exactly later on, like, how it worked out, because we did see a moment with him, like, where he was dancing with her and he was talking to her, and like, she obviously wasn't moving her mouth because she can't, like, she doesn't, like, that's an illusion over her like messed up face. And it's unclear whether she was talking to him telepathically and either he didn't pick up on it, or he just, like, maybe because Sabrina did telepathy on him earlier, he didn't think it was out of place.
Right. Like these crazy.
And we don't know what she says either.
Right.
So. Okay. But he realizes that, and I guess I said the last flashback, but this is the last flashback. My bad. We flash back to Geralt walking in a little room with Vilgefortz looking at a painting. Lydia like scurries on by after like she like looks like she's about to, sees that Geralt's in there and runs off. And we get a little bit of exposition about the first landing and that how this picture that Vilgefortz is looking at is his favorite painting in the place, and how it like relates sort of to the situation that they're in now, and then proceeds to try to sway Geralt to his cause, which he's pretty vague about, but he basically is saying like you can't entirely trust. Have you thought about learning sorcery yourself? Which is interesting. Yeah. And have you thought about bringing Ciri here to keep her safe? Because this is a safe place to keep her. And meanwhile, he's also trying to draw connections. Like, he was an orphan. Geralt was an orphan. He didn't grow up well. Like, they grew up in a weird situation. Right. And so he learned sorcery so that he could have a modicum of power. Yeah. Geralt learned like how to be a witcher. Like, he's drawing all these connections, trying to relate to him, and Geralt, of course, isn't really biting because it's like. But
it's a better attempt than what Dijkstra was doing.
Definitely,
it's kind of the same kind of thing to say, like, look how similar we are. But he actually has a lot more in common in those specific ways.
Yeah, and then when Geralt doesn't really agree, Vilgefortz does make what appears to be a like threat, but guises it in the form of like, you know, saying that Ciri's threatened in like by other people. But it's like, it is like, okay, this is a threat. Like I was like, he's threatening. And then we see that last little part where he's talking about Istrid and Geralt like walks off. I also would just like to point out the face that Geralt makes whenever Vilgefortz like taps him on the shoulder or like on the back or whatever. And he's just like, did you just fucking touch me?
Right.
It was so good. It was an
it's also
facial expression.
It's also one of those expressions you make when you're just totally uncomfortable the whole night and you're like, what is it now?
Which like, we know he is. Geralt doesn't want to be at this party, but like he knows the party has to play. And we come back into the normal time where they're making realizations that they look at the bracelet. They realize that the bracelet is made of a material that can only be found in the mines where Geralt found Taryn and the other girls. Okay.
Whatever.
And then they managed to, I guess Geralt explained what the painting looked like explicitly because Yennefer realizes that, when I went through that weird portal before and had like that weird like nightmare vision, it looked exactly like the picture of the first landing.
Which is like super, I don't know. That one felt like a stretch, but okay.
That was very contrived. But, you know, it's fine because it leads us to the conclusion that it's not Stregobor, it's Vilgefortz. Right. Which people who were familiar with the series, we knew that. We knew that was coming.
Right. And they kept that the same. And so good for them for at least keeping that part the same. Yeah. So this last line you have on here says the coup on Thanedd has begun. And that's where we're kind of left off was the this oh crap moment of them
they're
going
screaming. Geralt's like checking the halls. They're screaming. And we finish with Dijkstra putting a knife up to Geralt's throat and saying that he should have really gone along with his plan. Yeah.
So I don't know exactly how this all works together, what that actually means, but I guess we're going to find out. Any expectations?
I think this is the beautiful moment. We're going to start the next season with what I would consider a very beautiful moment, which is Geralt breaking Dijkstra's leg.
Beautiful moment. Perfect.
So that's kind of whenever they encounter each other in the coup, this is where Geralt like destroys Dijkstra's ankle and leaves him like impaired for the rest of his life. Like, so this is what because I mean, Dijkstra in this moment, this thing is right. He's politically savvy. He knows what he's doing in a throne room and how to like manipulate like all of those things in his favor. And like part of that makes him cocky to like think that he's also good at other. But everyone does this. Everyone makes this mistake to an extent of thinking that they can go toe to toe with the Witcher. Like, it doesn't matter if you put a knife to his throat. He is still so much faster than you. right. Like before you can comprehend that he's moving and that you should like slice his throat, he's already disarmed you, dismantled your defense,
broke your leg, whatever else. Yeah.
Like everyone seems to forget that Witchers have supernatural instincts and reflexes.
Right. And they use them all the time. Like a dude that can take out monsters is not going to have a problem with a regular person.
Which might be, I don't know, like I'm wondering if Dijkstra just doesn't like understand the concept because he does like he goes up to Geralt and like it is weird and like cringy whenever he tries like, you know, non-magical folk like commoner or whatever. But it's like quite possible that Dijkstra just thinks that because he's been in this like the throne room so often. He doesn't actually associate with Witchers.
Yeah.
Maybe. And like Witchers are much rarer in the Netflix series because there's only the wolves. They don't have any other ones.
That's true. Yeah. And I mean, the assumption would be like, well, he seems clued in about a lot of things. He seems very aware of the world and the way things work. But when it comes to Witchers, it's not like these are people that you can have spies hang out with and learn about the way they work their lives and things like that. They're very lone wolves in this case.
As we know, the trials are like actually like kept secret. People don't really know about the trials. So like the idea of what actually gets done to them, they don't realize. They just
so maybe he's just ignorant about it. Maybe he just thinks he knows more than he does. I mean, he doesn't know enough. But yeah, that could be it. So I'm interested to see how the season plays out. We've got another week or so before it comes out, and then
we get 10 days.
10 days.
It comes out July 27th,
and then we'll be up on the last 3 episodes. So hopefully, I mean, so far not as bad as season 2. I guess we'll just see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Toasty, you have stuff you want to share before we head out?
Check out the Cyberpunk Lorecast. If Cyberpunk is something you're interested in, I also do the Cyberpunk Red Light Play podcast, Cyberpunk apostrophe D, with the Fumbling for an Almighty Crit Gang.
Awesome. And all of my shows and those shows are over at robotsradio.net. So if you want to tune into anything that we do, lots of awesome content, lots of cool stuff. Go check it all out. And thanks for hanging out, Toasty. Thank you for being here, chat. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. And we're not going to see you next week, but we will be back the week after that with our patrons and then back on a regular schedule again. So we look forward to seeing you again soon. All right, everybody. See you. Oh, wait, Toasty. I always forget.
Stay safe on the path. You do this
mother, father. All right. See you all later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.